Germany in the 1980s wasn't just building luxury cruisers and Autobahn bruisers. They were also quietly slipping performance into cars that looked painfully average. One of these could smoke a Merc, and your uncle probably used it for grocery runs. Let's get into it. Number 12, Volkswagen Santana GX5, 1984 to 1988. A car your dentist might have bought new, but with enough pull to leave a GTI behind. Starting with something so forgettable on the surface, this next one came wrapped in the ultimate disguise: sensible, upright, and painfully beige. It was built to blend into West German suburbia, but under the hood, it had other plans. The Volkswagen Santana GX5 wore the same unassuming three-box design as the base Passat, with narrow tires, flat paint, and little more than a badge to hint at its hidden edge. But this wasn't your average family sedan. Volkswagen quietly slid in a 2.0-liter inline-5 engine, borrowed from Audi's parts bin, making around 115 to 136 horsepower and up to 175 newton-meters of torque. That gave it enough grunt to move from 0 to 60 miles per hour in about 9.3 seconds. Faster than anyone expected from something that looked like it belonged in a retirement parking lot. The secret sauce wasn't just the engine. It had independent suspension, a well-sorted 5-speed manual gearbox, and, rare for a car of its class back then, a solid sense of balance and composure at speed. On German back roads, it could keep up with more expensive rivals and made short work of long-distance drives. And yet, nobody gave it a second glance. Of course, it wasn't perfect. The interior, while functional, felt austere. The build quality didn't quite match Mercedes standards. And outside Germany, the GX5 trim was hard to find, often overshadowed by more famous Passat variants. But maybe that's what made it special. A car designed for quiet lives, quietly doing something bold. And just when you think the list can't get any more anonymous, the next one, it redefined what a diesel sedan could do. Stay with us. Number 11, BMW 524i, 1981 to 1988. The car that looked like your boss's commuter, but could cruise past traffic like it had somewhere better to be. At first glance, the BMW 524i came across as the ultimate executive sedan. Neat, respectable, and just a little bit forgettable. It had the familiar boxy silhouette of the E28 5 Series, narrow chrome trim, and subtle badging that barely hinted at what it could really do. This was a car your boss might have driven to the office Monday through Friday and then secretly opened up on the Autobahn over the weekend. Underneath its mild-mannered skin sat a 2.4-liter inline-6, part of BMW's legendary M20 engine family. It produced around 150 horsepower and 140 pound-feet of torque, channeled through a smooth 5-speed manual or 4-speed auto. That might not sound like much today, but back in the mid-80s, that was enough to push this mid-sizer to 0 to 60 miles per hour in under 9 seconds, which was more than respectable, especially for a car that looked this calm. But the real magic wasn't just the power figures. It was the way the 524i delivered them. The throttle response was immediate. The steering had that trademark BMW weight and feedback, and the chassis was eager without being twitchy. Whether you were weaving through city traffic or cruising at 120 miles per hour on the open highway, the 524i felt planted, composed, and just a little bit mischievous. Most people didn't look twice at this car, and that was exactly the point. No spoilers, no loud exhausts, just quietly confident performance in a suit and tie. And next, we're heading to a car that looked like a low-slung cruiser, but had more firepower than anyone gave it credit for. Number 10, Audi Coupe GT 2.3, 1987 to 1989. It looked like a stylish cruiser your artsy neighbor might drive, but it had enough punch to humble early hot hatches. The Audi Coupe GT 2.3 was the kind of car that flew under every radar. It had flair, sure, a graceful fastback silhouette, smooth lines, and just enough 80s charm to stand out from the sea of boxy sedans. But performance? Most didn't expect much. After all, this wasn't the famed Quattro, and there was no turbo badge to hint at mischief. But pop the hood, and you'd find a 2.3-liter inline-5 engine, making around 130 horsepower and 140 pound-feet of torque. It doesn't sound wild on paper, but paired with its lightweight chassis and precise 5-speed manual, it could quietly outpace heavier rivals and give sportier-looking cars a real challenge. 0 to 60 miles per hour came in around 8.5 seconds, which was impressive for something that looked more elegant than athletic. This car wasn't about brute speed or flashy numbers. It was about balance. The 5-cylinder delivered power with a unique warble that hinted at Audi's rally DNA, and the suspension was tuned for confident, neutral handling. Front-wheel drive kept things grounded, and while it didn't have Quattro grip, it still danced through corners with surprising agility. Inside, the Coupe GT 2.3 was refined and comfortable. Just enough wood grain and brushed metal to remind you it wasn't trying to be a boy racer. And that's what made it a true sleeper. It didn't pretend to be fast, it just was. You'd see it parked at cafes or design studios, not track days. But when the light turned green, it had no trouble leaving expectations in lesser cars in the dust. Coming up next, a car that looked like it was built for government clerks, but had just enough injection to make it a street sleeper. Number 9, Opel Rekord E2 2.2 ICD, 1984 to 1986. The kind of car your uncle might have used for family trips, but with just enough bite to surprise an 80s BMW. The Opel Rekord E2 2.2 ICD looked like the very definition of average. It was a large, boxy sedan, no flashy trim, no aggressive lines, and certainly no go-faster stripes. Most people saw it as a comfortable, middle-management company car or a practical family hauler. But behind that conservative exterior was a sleeper with surprising street cred. This Rekord came with a 2.2-liter fuel-injected inline-4, producing about 115 horsepower and 129 pound-feet of torque. Now that might not sound groundbreaking, but in a relatively lightweight body and paired with a 5-speed manual, it gave the Rekord a healthy dose of real-world pace. 0 to 60 miles per hour came in around 9.5 seconds, quick enough to keep pace with early BMW 3 Series sedans, all while flying totally under the radar. The CD trim was the top of the range, adding comfort without flash. Plush seats, air conditioning, and a refined interior made long drives easy. But the real charm was how Opel managed to balance ride comfort with responsive handling. It wasn't a corner carver, but it didn't embarrass itself either. In fact, its simplicity worked in its favor. Less weight, less drama, and more fun than anyone expected from such a dad mobile. On the outside, it still looked like a car destined for government fleets, but on the inside, it had just enough engineering finesse to keep things exciting when the road opened up. If you've made it this far into our list of forgotten German gems, you're clearly one of the real ones. Hit that subscribe button. We've got even more hidden legends coming up. And trust me, the next few are just getting faster. Number 8, Mercedes-Benz 230 EW 124, 1986 to 1989. The car your neighbor's dad drove to work every day, but it had more Autobahn pedigree than anyone gave it credit for. At first glance, the Mercedes-Benz 230 EW 124 looked like any other conservative German sedan from the 80s. Square headlights, slab sides, and the kind of dignity only a Mercedes could pull off, even when painted in beige. It was the car of doctors, accountants, and professors. Fast, flashy, not even close. but quietly capable? Absolutely. Under its understated hood sat a 2.3-liter inline-4, making about 132 horsepower and 148 pound-feet of torque. On paper, not jaw-dropping, but the real magic was how it delivered that power. With a smooth shifting 5-speed manual, or automatic if you preferred cruising, the 230e could do 0 to 60 miles per hour in just over 9 seconds, which for the time and class was impressive, especially considering how composed it remained at triple-digit speeds on the Autobahn. The W124 chassis was over-engineered in the best way, solid, planted, and deceptively agile for such a formal-looking car. It had multi-link rear suspension, near-perfect weight distribution, and bulletproof build quality. It didn't beg to be driven hard, but when pushed, it responded with poise that many faster-looking cars couldn't match. And the best part? Nobody saw it coming. You could pull up beside a flashy coupe at the lights, nod politely, and leave them wondering what just happened. Here's a question. Which is more of a sleeper, a fast car that looks slow, or a slow car that feels fast? Drop a comment and let me know. I'm curious where you draw the line. Next up, a BMW that finally starts raising some eyebrows, but only once it's already pulling away. Number 7, BMW 535i E28, 1986 to 1988. It looked like every other dad's company car until it flew past you like a sports car in disguise. The BMW 535i E28, 1986 to 1988, didn't wear its speed on its sleeve. Parked next to a base 518i, you'd be hard-pressed to tell the difference. Same conservative lines, same chrome bumpers, same unassuming stance. But behind that subtle exterior was one of the most potent sleepers of its time. Under the hood sat a 3.4-liter inline-6, part of BMW's M30 engine family, producing a healthy 182 to 218 horsepower, depending on market and configuration. With over 220 pound-feet of torque, the 535i was deceptively quick, hitting 0 to 60 miles per hour in around 6.5 to 7 seconds. Easily faster than many purpose-built sports coupes of the era. But it wasn't just about straight-line speed. The E28 chassis was tight, responsive, and perfectly balanced. With rear-wheel drive, a manual gearbox, and minimal driver aids, the 535i rewarded those who knew how to drive. And it did so without making a scene. No wings, no stripes, just pure mechanical excellence hiding in plain sight. Inside, it was all business. Supportive seats, a clear instrument cluster, and just enough luxury to remind you it was a premium sedan. But underneath that executive calm was a car that could storm the left lane of the Autobahn without breaking a sweat. Most people thought they were looking at a family car, but by the time they realized what had just passed them, the 535i was already gone. Quiet, composed, and far faster than it had any right to be. Let's keep going, because the next car proves that even front-wheel drive Volkswagens weren't afraid to punch above their weight. Number 6, Volkswagen Passat GL5 B2, 1985 to 1988. It looked like a sensible family sedan, but had just enough firepower to make hot hatch owners nervous. The Volkswagen Passat GL5 B2, 1985 to 1988, was the kind of car you'd see parked at the grocery store, school pickup lane, or maybe outside a modest office building. With its squared-off shape, slim grille, and minimal trim, it looked like it was designed to not be noticed. But under the surface, it had a surprise, especially for anyone underestimating it at a red light. The secret? A 2.2-liter inline-5, lifted from Audi's parts bin. In the GL5 trim, this engine pushed out 115 to 136 horsepower and around 140 pound-feet of torque. That gave the Passat enough grunt to go from 0 to 60 miles per hour in under 9 seconds, especially with the 5-speed manual. For a front-wheel drive family sedan in the mid-80s, that was seriously quick. More importantly, it didn't just move fast in a straight line. Thanks to its Audi-derived platform and independent suspension, the GL5 was surprisingly nimble. It could handle corners with confidence, offering a planted, balanced feel that made it far more capable than its humble appearance let on. Inside, it stayed true to its sleeper DNA. Durable fabrics, no-nonsense layout, and gauges that meant business. No flashy details, no tech gimmicks, just the basics done right. What really made the GL5 a sleeper, though, was its complete invisibility. No spoilers, no sporty badging, not even alloy wheels and some trims. It was the car nobody expected anything from until it was already gone. And now we move to a car that shrunk the formula, kept the same stealth factor, but turned up the responsiveness even more. One that proves size doesn't matter when you know how to move. Number 5, Audi A2 GTE B2, 1983 to 1986. It looked like a student's hand-me-down, but it drove like a secret GTI in a sedan suit. The Audi A2 GTE B2 was a car most people barely noticed. Small, boxy, and reserved to the point of blending into traffic. It looked like something your older cousin might have taken to college. But this wasn't just another sensible German compact. It had real bite if you knew where to look. At its heart was a 1.8-liter fuel-injected inline-4, shared with the original Volkswagen GTI, making around 110 horsepower and 119 pound-feet of torque. It may not sound intimidating today, but in a lightweight chassis with short gearing and a crisp shifting 5-speed manual, it moved with urgency and poise. 0 to 60 miles per hour came in just under 9 seconds, putting it firmly in hot hatch territory, even if it didn't look the part. The GTE wasn't about brute power. It was about sharp responses and connected driving. With McPherson struts up front, torsion beam in the rear, and a stiffened suspension setup, it handled like a champ. Light on its feet, eager in corners, and quick off the line, the GTE quietly delivered thrills to drivers who didn't need to show off. From the outside, it wore the same sheet metal as lesser Audi 80s. No wings, no fat tires, and no loud colors. Just a tiny GTE badge, modest wheels, and a quietly confident stance. And inside, it was all function. Clear gauges, firm seats, and zero distractions. In a world where flash gets all the attention, the Audi A2 GTE was the kind of car you never saw coming. And by the time you noticed it pulling away, it was already too late. Up next, a German highway missile that looked like it belonged in a taxi fleet until it didn't. Number 4, Opel Omega 3000, 1986 to 1989. It looked like it was built for government fleets, but it had enough power to chase down sports cars. The Opel Omega 3000, 1986 to 1989, was the ultimate definition of under-the-radar speed. On the outside, it looked like any other executive sedan of the time. Long, clean lines, conservative grille, and the kind of car you'd expect to see parked outside a regional bank or being used as a company car. But under that respectable exterior, Opel had hidden a legitimate Autobahn stormer. Powered by a 3.0-liter inline-6, the Omega 3000 delivered an impressive 177 horsepower and 225 pound-feet of torque, numbers that put it in the same league as contemporary BMWs, without the premium badge or attention. Paired with a 5-speed manual and rear-wheel drive, it launched from 0 to 60 miles per hour in just over 7 seconds, fast enough to embarrass plenty of sportier cars on the road. But speed wasn't the only surprise. The Omega 3000 had the chassis to back it up, featuring independent rear suspension, upgraded brakes, and precise, responsive steering. It was built for high-speed stability with ride quality that stayed composed even at 130+ miles per hour. And inside, it offered comfort over flash, supportive seats, a driver-focused layout, and all the tools you needed for long-distance fast cruising. Visually, it was masterclass in restraint. No spoilers, no flared fenders, just subtle badging and a wide stance that only hinted at what it could do. Most people thought it was just another taxi-spec Omega until it disappeared in the fast lane. This car didn't brag, it just performed. And if you're into finding more hidden beasts just like it, make sure to hit that subscribe button. We're only getting deeper into the forgotten side of German speed. Number 3, BMW 528i E28, 1981 to 1987. It looked like every other BMW on the block, but had enough muscle to chase down cars twice the price. The BMW 528i E28, 1981 to 1987, was the definition of stealth performance. It didn't wear flared arches or M badges. In fact, parked next to a 518i or 520i, it was nearly indistinguishable. Same narrow tires, same chrome bumpers, same buttoned-up design. But under the hood, a different story altogether. This one packed a 2.8-liter inline-six from BMW's legendary M30 engine family, putting out around 184 horsepower and 177 pound-feet of torque. That gave it a 0 to 60 mile-per-hour time of about 7.5 seconds, which was right on par with some of the best sports coupes of its era. And yet it did it all in silence, wearing a blazer instead of a tracksuit. The E28 chassis added to the magic. Rear-wheel drive, tight steering, and a perfectly balanced ride that made back roads just as fun as the Autobahn. Paired with a 5-speed manual, the 528i wasn't just quick in a straight line. It was engaging, the kind of car that rewarded good driving without ever demanding attention. Inside, it was all understated BMW logic, ergonomic, focused, and free of distractions. Outside, it blended into any street scene, never drawing suspicion from police or car enthusiasts alike. It was the car you didn't think twice about until it left you behind. So here's a question. What's the better sleeper? One that hides its power completely, or one that just barely hints at it through sound or feel? Drop a comment and let me know. Next up, an Audi that looked like a business-class cruiser, but had a secret weapon hiding under all that polish. Number 2, Audi 100 CS Quattro C3, 1985 to 1988. It looked like a sleek executive cruiser, but underneath it had the soul of a rally-bred warrior. The Audi 100 CS Quattro C3 was the kind of car you'd expect to see gliding silently down the Autobahn, its aerodynamic body slicing through the air like a luxury bar of soap. No flashy trim, no aggressive stance, just smooth lines and subtle sophistication. But Audi had quietly given it a secret weapon: Quattro all-wheel drive and a 5-cylinder heart that refused to play slow. Under the hood was a 2.2-liter inline-5, producing around 138 to 160 horsepower, depending on the market and spec. But the real story wasn't just the power, it was how it was delivered. With Quattro grip, a manual transmission, and a platform honed by years of rally dominance, this executive sedan could power through poor weather and tight corners in ways few expected. 0 to 60 miles per hour came in just under 9 seconds, but it felt quicker thanks to constant traction and a flat, torquey curve. The C3 generation was also a pioneer in aerodynamics, with a drag coefficient of just 0.30, making it one of the slipperiest sedans of its era. That meant it wasn't just quick off the line, it stayed smooth and stable at high speeds too. Visually, the 100 CS Quattro stayed silent about its abilities. Most people assumed it was just a stylish saloon for quiet professionals, but those in the know understood what it could do, especially when the roads got wet or winding. This wasn't just a sedan with a trick drive train. It was a discreet beast born from the same bloodline that conquered Group B, and it was hiding in plain sight. Number 1. Mercedes 300e W124, 1986 to 1992. It looked like a car your grandfather might have bought, but it had enough muscle to chase down 80s sports cars without breaking a sweat. The Mercedes 300e W124, 1986 to 1992, was never meant to be loud. It didn't need flashy paint, fat tires, or hood scoops to prove itself. In fact, that was its greatest strength, complete and total subtlety. With its clean lines, upright grille, and boxy silhouette, the 300e looked like the ideal car for quiet professionals and middle-aged executives. But Mercedes quietly built it to be something else entirely, a luxury missile in disguise. Under the hood sat a 3.0-liter inline-six, producing around 177 to 188 horsepower and 188 pound-feet of torque. That was enough to propel this stately sedan from 0 to 60 miles per hour in about 7.8 seconds. Quicker than many sports coupes of the time, and smooth enough to make it feel effortless. On the Autobahn, it could cruise comfortably at 130+ miles per hour all day, with rock-solid stability and zero drama. But the real magic of the 300e wasn't just in the numbers. It was how everything came together. The impeccable balance, the bulletproof engineering, the silky smooth suspension that soaked up everything without disconnecting you from the road. It was quiet, refined, and deadly competent. To the outside world, it was just another doctor's car. But behind the wheel, you knew better. It was a sleeper of the highest order. A car that didn't brag, didn't shout, and didn't care what anyone else thought. It just went. Which one of these German sleepers would you roll up in for a late-night run? No spoilers, no flex, just raw, underrated power? Drop your pick in the comments. I'm seriously curious which one caught you off guard. And if you thought this list was wild, just wait. In the next video, we're uncovering the machines that were so fast, so forgotten, they nearly slipped past history altogether. Some were almost banned. Some never even made it out of Europe. And yes, most people have never heard of them. So hit that subscribe button, give this video a like, and stick around. Because the real underground legends, they're just warming up.